Hi, I'm Bill Griffith. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to boot up this TJBot headless fashion. You saw I unboxed it and then I assembled it. And so now what I'm going to do is show you how to hook this up without a keyboard and without a monitor. And so here's the little SIM card. Insert it into your computer, and then you're going to manipulate the files that are on the NOOB's image and then boot it up. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so here's my TJBot. I'm going to show you connecting in a HDMI cable. And it goes right in here. The little USB from the Adafruit power cord. Plug that into the Mini, and you see the blue light comes on. And now it's booting up. You see my screen here. And there's NOOB's 2.1. Now, there's a later version. This is a good year old. You see November the 24th up there. So there is a newer version which is recommended to download that and then burn that to the SD chip. But if you don't want to and you just want to take out of the box, then this is what you can do. Now, my challenge is I don't have a keyboard. I'm using a MacBook Air without a keyboard. So now I'm going to show you how to boot this guy up. This Raspberry Pi has a Wi-Fi unit, Wi-Fi built in, but I would have to configure it to my network and all of those things. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a headless fashion. So you saw the default image on the NOOBs, and if you have HDMI cable and mice and keyboards, then certainly that's easier. But I don't, so I'm going to show you how to boot this up headless. And to do that, I disconnect the power from my Raspberry Pi, as well as eject the SD card here and put it into the SanDisk micro SD reader that goes into my computer, and then I can drill into the files and manipulate them and set up for a silent install. Okay, so just inserted the SD card into the Mac, and you see here it is, the files of the NOOBs 2.1. Right, and then what I do is pull up a command prompt terminal window, and then in this file, is the file recovery.cmd line, and we're going to make that silent install. So if I pwd, I'm at the root directory in Mac. I'm going to go to volumes, hit tab, and then I'm going to go to recovery. It's the name of that formatted SD, and here are the files that you see. Now you can open. I'm not, text editor is not working here for me in Mac, so I'm going to do it old school command line. So with that, I'm going to do VI. I think is there a nano or something? Let me try that. Use VI, but let's see here, recovery.cmd. Okay, all right, so that's nano. What is that, control X? Right, but I'm going to use VI. Use whatever text editor that you want, and then you see here I want to go to the end of that line and do silent install. And then I'm going to save this file, and you see the timestamp here changed. Now the other thing I need to do is go into the OS directory, into Raspbian, and you can do that up here if you'd prefer to do with the graphical tool. Now this one, since it's an SH, I suspect text editor will do a little bit better with that if I can open with text editor. Right, so here's the file with text editor. Now what happens when I boot this, so it's going to do a silent install, just accepting all the defaults, but the network's not on, and I need to remote desktop into this. By default, SSH is not available. There's no remote desktop. You could install VNC or something like that, but this turned out to be pretty easy for me, so I'm going with this. So what I do is, you see the cursor after the mount, I do echo SSH, which is to turn on SSH, and I redirect that output to /temp /1/SSH. And if that file is found, then it will enable SSH on your Raspberry Pi so that you can remote desktop into it. So then I save that file, and now you should see that file as a timestamp that's up to date. So now we're ready to boot this guy up. So I'm going to eject it and then put it into the TJBot. So here's my TJBot. I plug it in. You see I'm using the HDMI cable because my monitor does have that. If you don't, just plug it in and wait for about 15 minutes. Let it install silently. And you can see on my monitor it's going through the silent install after I've manipulated the files on the SD card. So I don't have a keyboard. And first time I did this, I did it without the HDMI cable, but certainly helpful to see if you have a monitor. Okay, you see my Raspberry Pi has installed and rebooted, and you see it says SSH default password is on, security risk. And this is with a monitor. Now obviously you're not going to see this if you don't have a monitor, so I'm going to show you how to connect in, because I don't have a keyboard, so I can't do anything with this anyway other than just see the status. But I'm going to connect in the cable, share my network settings on Mac, and then remote desktop into this guy and configure it. Alright, so here's my TJBot, and you see I have the RJ45 cable connected in to my TJBot. Now I'm going to connect the other end over here to my Thunderbolt connection. Sit down. And now I'm set. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go up to my little Apple icon, hit Preferences. I'm going to go to my System Preferences, and I want to turn on my internet sharing. Go to Sharing. This is a Mac, and I say, right, click in this, and I want to share my Wi-Fi connection, my house is connected to, the Thunderbolt Ethernet, right? So when I'm plugged in with just a plain old Ethernet, don't need a patch cable, just a regular old Ethernet that you plug in to the internet, and I'm going to turn on the sharing. Okay, so now I have plugged in my Ethernet cable, my RJ45 connections into the Raspberry Pi, and the Thunderbolt on my Mac. So I pull up a command window, and I'm going to use the arp-a command to see if there's any new network connections. Here's a new IP address I haven't seen. So let's see if that is the Raspberry Pi. And to connect, I'm going to do SSH. Pi is the user, and 192.168.2.2. Well, it's accepting an SSH connection, so let's add that to my known host list. And the password is Raspberry, I think. Right. So the password is enabled and SSH is enabled. And as you see, I am connected. So I want to be able to connect to this Raspberry from the Wi-Fi. So I need to configure the Wi-Fi. To do that, I'm going to change directories to etc. So in etc, I need to go to the WPA supplicant directory. There is a config file here. Now as root, sudo, which is su do it, WPA supplicant.conf. Ah, dang it. Sudo vi for an editor, config. And you'll see here's the config file. Now what I need to add, Great Britain is, I'm actually doing this in the US, but let's leave that. And I needed to add a network equal sid equals my network. And then my PSK key equals XXXXX. And then I save that. So it's also generally a good idea to change the password. So I'm going to do that now. In Linux, it's just the command password. And the current password is Raspberry. And I'm going to change it to something else. Password changed. And then I'm going to reboot this guy and see if the Wi-Fi comes up on it. I pulled out the Ethernet cable out of the Raspberry Pi since I'm now on Wi-Fi. The reboot didn't work, so I've unplugged it and replugged in my Raspberry Pi. I'm going to do an ARP-A and see if I got some new network connection to my Wi-Fi at home. And here I do. So it's it's 19. I'm going to try to connect to that SSH Pi, the user 192.168.1.19, and see if that is the Pi. Let's accept it. And the password should be my new password, not Raspberry. Voila! Looks like I'm in. CDAF, do a df-u, df-k, old school. File blocks in. So now I'm on to my Raspberry Pi headless, all just from a remote desktop. And now I'm going to show you how to configure the TJBot libraries.